The new member should be in the middle. Proceed.
Mr. Speaker, sir, may I introduce the MP for Kitutu Chache South elect Honorable Onyonga Richard.
Very well.
National Assembly do swear in the name of Almighty God that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the people of the Republic of Kenya, that I will obey, respect, uphold, preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, and that I will faithfully and conscientiously discharge the duties of a Member of Parliament. So help me God.
I congratulate the Honorable Richard Onyonka for having been elected the member for Kitutu Chache South.
Thank you for the third time.
Well, another member tells me for the third time.
Yes.
Very well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Walk to the Very well. Honourable members is encouraged, is advised to congratulate the member. Next order.
Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honourable members, this communication relates to the matter of the appointment of the leader of by the minority coalition in this 12th Parliament, namely the positions of leader of the minority party, deputy leader of the minority party, minority whip, and the deputy minority whip. More importantly, I did direct the minority coalition to comply with the provisions of Standing Order number 20. Letters dated the 16th of November 2017 and 29th November 2017, which are supported by the minutes of the NASA Parliamentary Group meetings held on the 2nd of November 2017 and 25th of November 2017, respectively. The NASA Coalition has formally written to my office communicating its leadership in the House as follows. A, Leader of the Minority Party, the Honorable John Bandi, MP. B, Deputy Leader of the Minority Party, the Honorable Robert Mbui, MP. C, Minority Chief Whip, the Honorable Junaid Nur Mohammed, MP. And D, Deputy Minority Chief Whip, the Honorable Chris Wamalwa, MP. Honorable members, the NASA coalition is now fully compliant with their coalition procedures in submitting the names of its leadership in the House. In this regard, therefore, I confirm that the said names now constitute the coalition's leadership in the House in the respective capacities as advised. In the circumstances, I hereby call upon the majority and the minority leadership in the House to move with speed and submit the names of the members they wish to serve in the Committee on Selection, the Committee on Appointments, and thereafter, the various other committees of the House. This will enable the House proceed with its usual business in the fulfillment of its constitutional mandate. Indeed, I'm aware that the clerk has previously formally communicated to the party leaderships the need to submit their nominees to the said committees for subsequent prioritization by the House Business Committee and consideration of the House. I thank you, members.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable Member for Ugunja, what is your point of order? I hope it is not. Well, the petitions are handled in a different way. You may be advised to look at your standing order number 225. But nevertheless, the member for Ugunja will be handled.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. I'll just seek your indulgence so that I may pass a message of congratulations to the 4 members of the House who belong to the NASA coalition who have now been duly appointed to the leadership of the House. Mr. Speaker, as all of us are aware, NASA has got a very robust parliamentary wing. And we have this wing as a way of furthering our broad agenda. And therefore today is a very important day for us. And the agenda, of course, is the agenda for fight for positive change in the country. We are confident that the 4 persons named to lead the NASA parliamentary wing in this August House are more than equal to the task. And I want to take this opportunity to congratulate them most heartedly and wish them all the best, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Honorable Marina, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I also just want to say we are happy that at last NASA has decided to play their rightful role in the opposition, and we are looking forward to working very closely together with them. But the one thing that I can't help but notice is that out of the House leadership on the NASA side, there's not a single woman. I think NASA has boasted of being the ones that follow the Constitution more than Jubilee. But, Mr. Speaker, you can see actions speak louder than words. It's such a shame that in a party like NASA, where we have serious women leaders who are able to take up leadership in this House, there's not a single woman out of the 4 men. And I think NASA should feel ashamed of letting down the women of this country.
Very well. I see one leader who has forgotten that you don't raise hands here. The member for Homa Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the first time I am speaking in this parliament, and the card doesn't seem to be working. That is why I was raising my hand, but thank you for noticing me. Let me join my colleague, Honorable Wandai, in stating that bringing our leadership on board has been long overdue, and we believe that the 4 individuals who have been given these positions are capable of driving our coalition forward. On the matter of gender that has been raised, I would like to note that these are not the only positions within the coalition. NASA has capable women. They will be bringing women forward in very, very serious positions moving forward, in fact, overwhelmingly so. So What I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, is that this matter of leadership has been round and round. Let us settle it. Let the leadership work in furthering our agenda as NASA in bringing change to this country. Thank you.
Don. Honor members, order members, you are at liberty to express disgust and jubilation, but that is the communication that I have received, and I want to make it to the House. Remember, it is not meant for voting. It is a matter that has been sorted out by the coalition, and I didn't give the House a rent to the honor members. It is not, I have received the communication. Those who may feel aggrieved know where to seek redress. Member for Zed Msambweni. Member for Msambweni.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Nimesimama kwa ile orodha kamili ambayo imetolewa, ambayo inawakilisha uongozi wa chama wa mrengo wa NASA. Na msimamo wangu ni kwamba ninaipinga moja kwa moja. Naipinga kwa sababu ya kwamba kwanza jinsia haikuangaliwa kikamilifu. Pili, hii imeashiria wazi ya kwamba uongozi wa chama umeelekezwa Nyanza peke yake, wengine wote wameachwa nje. Kwa hiyo pia taratibu ambayo imetuonyesha wazi ni kwamba kuna taratibu iliyo katika hichi chama, na tunataka tuweke wazi kama wapwani twapinga kikamilifu na tutasimama kupinga, na ikiwa pwani haitotambuliwa tutaresist kama wao wanavyoresist. Asante sana.
Well, order members, order members. Order members. I want to remind the House that I am not presiding over a party parliamentary group meeting. I am not in a party parliamentary group meeting. And therefore, this is not a matter for debate. Now there is a member here. No, this member, this one. Yeah, is member for which constituency?
Kilifi North.
Which constituency?
I'm a member from Kilifi North, Mr. Speaker. Sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to address the issues that are...
Member for which constituency, please?
Kilifi North.
Kilifi North?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, thank you. I would like to support the chairman of CPG on this matter. Us as the coast people, we voted overwhelmingly for NASA. And we are not going to be humiliated by the party. And it comes a time when people break ranks. And this is the moment where a party gets destroyed because of the kind of bias that we are seeing. And I want to say this, without fear of anyone, I want to say this. that as a coast people, we deserve a seat among the top 4. We cannot have 2 members from the same county sitting on the leadership of the county. So I want to speak very clearly. We have suffered marginalization and exclusion in many areas, but this time as a coast people, we are not going to accept that, whether in government or within the party. So I want to make it very clear. The people who sat down to come up or to manufacture that...
The minutes. There's nothing out of order. This was communication. We'll move to the next order. Can you tell that to me? No. I'm not attending yet.
The messages. So you read messages.
You have a message from Senate. Take your seat. Take your seat. Now, honourable members, Honourable Sankok, honourable members, member for Budalangi, honourable members, Honourable Kaluma. Honourable members, the honourable members who are standing, you may not have been in the chamber for long. Honourable members, we are on the order of messages. This is message number 2 of 2017, relating to the approval by the Senate of the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017. Honourable members, standing order number 41, subsection 4, requires the Speaker to report to the House any message or messages received from the Senate at the first convenient opportunity. In this regard, I wish to report to the House that on Wednesday, November 15, 2017, I received a message from the Senate regarding the passage of the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, which was published in the Kenya Gazette Supplement number 167 of 2017. The message reads in part, and I quote, "The Senate considered and passed the said bill on Thursday, 9th of November 2017, without amendments." Close the quote. Honourable members, given the urgency of the passage of this bill, and in accordance with the provision of Standing Order number 143, I've directed that the bill be read a first time today. Thereafter, should the House agree with the procedural motion, the bill may be considered in all stages in the course of today or tomorrow. A copy of the bill and the advice from the Parliamentary Budget Office have since been circulated by the clerk. I thank you. Honourable members, the second message, being number 3 of 2017, again from the Senate, relates to the establishment of Joint Select Committee on the election of members to the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA. Honourable members, pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 41, I wish to convey to the House a message received from the Senate on Friday, 17 November 2017, regarding the resolution of the Senate on the establishment of a Joint Select Committee on the election of members to the East African Legislative Assembly, EALA. The message states in part, and I quote, "On Thursday, November 9, 2017, the Senate resolved to establish a Joint Select Committee consisting of 5 members of each House to undertake the functions contemplated under the East African Legislative Assembly election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, close the quotes. Honourable members, I wish to inform the House that the Senate has appointed the following members to represent it in this committee, in addition to those appointed by the National Assembly. 1, Senator Aaron Cheriot. 2, Senator Dr. Abdullahi Ibrahim Ali. 3, Senator Millicent Omanga. 4, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. And 5, Senator Rose Nyamunga. In this regard, therefore, members, we get to order number 7. When we get to order number 7 on statements, I'll give an opportunity to the co-chairperson of the Joint Select Committee on the election of members to the South African Legislative Assembly, the Honorable Kato Lemetito, MP, to apprise the House and the public on the progress of the activities that the Joint Committee has been undertaking, the timelines, and the next course of action regarding the Iyala elections. I thank you, honourable members.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Honourable Asheli, Majority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table. But, Mr. Speaker, before I do, I wanted to request that you allow me to congratulate the new leadership, our counterparts on the minority for their appointment. Mr. Speaker, we have had this problem for some time, and I'm sure that the appointment would help us move faster. I want to be more specific that I congratulate Honorable Junet Mohammed, who is now the Chief Whip minority, and I know that as usual, whips have always supported each other, and I want to invite him that immediately after this, we may take some tea together so that we agree on way forward. I'm aware that he's in the House, and also the Deputy Honorable Chris Wamalwa. Even though, Mr. Speaker, I was over feeling that the House leadership also needs to bring out the face of Kenya. And for us as a party, Jubilee, we have to admit that we didn't do very well in cost. But our counterparts in NASA had 17 members of parliament who they got in cost. And we were thinking that they will take that advantage. They will use that opportunity to at least bring somebody from coast so that we have a face of Kenya in the House leadership. That said and done, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Wandai talked of robust leadership on the NASA side. I just want to inform you that also on the Jubilee side, we have robust members of parliament who are ready to articulate government business in this House. I want to, Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, November 29th, 2017, afternoon sitting. 1, a list of nominees to 17 national government constituencies development fund committees from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. Mr. Speaker, I also I beg to lay the annual report and financial statements of the University of Nairobi for the year ended 30th June 2016. Mr. Speaker, 3, the report I'm going to lay is of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect to the following constituencies. Institutions for the year ended 30th June 2016 and the certificates therein. A, Kerio Valley Development Authority. B, Kenya School of Government. C, Moi University. D, Information and Communication Technology Authority. And Rongo University College. 4, Mr. Speaker, the reports of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect
to the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2016 and the certificates therein. A, Kerio North constituency. B, Igembe Central constituency. C, Mbeere North constituency. D, Marakwet East constituency. E, Aldai constituency. F, Mgwen constituency. G, Turkana South constituency. H, Turkana North constituency. I, Jesumei constituency. J, Kajaliba constituency. K, Jerengani constituency. I, Saboti constituency. N, Mbeere South constituency. And Loima constituency. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
There was Honorable Asheli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion. That pursuant to the provisions of Section 43(4) and Regulations 5(10) of the National Government Constituency Development Fund 2015, this House approved the list of nominees for the appointment to the following 17 constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, November 29th, 2017. 1, Isiolo South constituency. 2, Msambweni constituency. 3, Mwingi North constituency. 4, Rangwe constituency. 5, Sare constituency. 6, Ugenya constituency. 7, Luanda constituency. 8, Balambala constituency. 9, Embakasi North constituency. 10, Mahaya constituency. They will need additional names. 11, Amisi constituency. 12, Homa Bay Town constituency. 13, Kitutu Chache North constituency. 14, Nyakach constituency. 15, Saboti constituency. 16, Wajir North constituency. Additional names also. 17, Lagdera constituency. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Roles as provided for under Section 24 of the National Police Service Act. Concerned that many police officers across the country, especially those working in northern Kenya and other high-risk and hardship areas, continue to work under very difficult environment characterized by, among others, inadequate and inhabitable, deplorable and congested living quarters, insufficient tools for work and poor salaries and allowances. Further concerned that the difficult working environment for the police officers has often led to frustrations, demotivation and occupational stress among officers, with many of them exiting the force in search of other jobs. This House urges the National Police Service Commission and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to provide salary incentives and adequate, decent housing for police officers who are deployed to serve in northern Kenya and other hardship areas. Thank you.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 7, statements.
Honorable Kato.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to give a statement on the progress made in the process of election of members to represent Kenya in the East African Legislative Assembly on behalf of the Joint Parliamentary Select Committee on the election of members of the East African Legislative Assembly, popularly referred as YELA. As members are aware, the Joint Committee comprises of 10 members drawn from the Jubilee Party and the NASA Coalition in both houses. Mr. Speaker, members may as well be aware that the election could not be held as scheduled during the term of the 11th Parliament,
as the Houses proceeded to the Sunday recess in June 2017 to allow members ample time to participate in campaigns ahead of the August general election. In this regard, the Joint Committee has the privilege of building on the gains made by its predecessor committee, which reviewed the procedure and rules for the election of members of the EALA to accord with the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and the bicameral nature of our parliament. Mr. Speaker, the Joint Committee embarked on its task in the earnest by convening its first meeting on Wednesday, November 15, 2017, where we agreed to embark on an immediate roadmap that would expedite the election of Kenya's members to the Regional Assembly. As the first step, the committee directed the presiding officers, who are the clerks of the Houses of Parliament, to immediately place an advertisement regarding the vacancies as required under Rule 4 of the East African Legislative Assembly election, into bracket election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017. Consequently, the presiding officers published an advertisement in the Kenya Gazette, the Daily Nation, and the Standard newspaper of November 16, 2017, inviting interested qualified candidates to submit their applications. At the close of business on Thursday, November 23rd, 2017, which was the final day for the submission of applications, the presiding officers had received a total of 208 applications as follows. From the Jubilee Party, there were 111 applicants. The Orange Democratic Party, ODM, that's Orange Democratic Movement, there were 43 applicants. The Wiper Democratic Movement, there were 8 applicants. The Amani National Congress, ANC, had 4. The Economic Freedom Party, EFP, had 4. The Kenya National Union, that's Kenya African National Union, KANU, there were also 4 applicants. The Forum for Restoration of Democracy, Ford Kenya, had 3. The Kenya Patriots Party, KPP, 2. The Party of Development and Reforms, 2. The Frontier Alliance Party, FAP, 1. The Democratic Party, that is DP, 1. The Party of National Unity, PNU, had 1. And there were independent candidates, or those who applied as independent candidates, there were 24. This brought a total of 208 applicants. It's good to note that out of the 208, only 9 will go to Arusha to represent the nation. Mr. Speaker, parties intending to vie as independents from political party or of political parties are required to present their nomination papers tomorrow, Thursday, November 30th, 2017, which is the nomination day. Recognizing that Kenya is entitled to a total of 9 slots in the membership of the East African Legislative Assembly, and in accordance with the provision of Rule 6, which provides for the number of candidates each political party should submit for election, the Joint Committee analyzed the representation in the Houses of Parliament to determine the proportionate entitlement for each of the 20 political parties in our parliament. Mr. Speaker, we have a representation of 20 political parties in both houses. To do so, we sum up the total number of members in each of the political parties in both houses as a proportion of the total membership of parliament, which is 116 members, and multiply the resultant figure by 9. The committee was also conscious of the fact that there are 15 independent members in both houses of parliament. And these are 14 from the National Assembly, and there is 1 independent member in the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, as approved by this House in the 11th Parliament, that was as a report of the, the predecessor committee on the same. Indeed, independent members are independent of one another, and that was the motion adopted. And therefore, they cannot be construed to be a political party. for purposes of computing the proportional entitlements for parties. Mr. Speaker, before proceeding to determine the allocation, the committee undertook a due diligence with the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties to establish the existence of any pre-election or a post-election coalition agreement among parties. In this regard, the committee confirmed that there were only 2 coalition agreements deposited with the said office, that is the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. The first one is by 5 parties, that is the Orange Democratic Movement, the Wiper Democratic Movement, Ford Kenya, Amani National Congress, and Chama cha Mashinani, CCM, coalescing into the National Super Alliance. And the second coalition agreement is by 2 parties, and that is the Wiper Democratic Movement and Muungano Party. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Rule 6 of the East African Legislative Assembly elections, into bracket election of members of the Assembly Rules 2017, require political parties eligible to nominate candidates for election of members of IALA to present to the presiding officers nominees equivalent to 3 times their entitlement. As required under Rule 7, today, Wednesday, 29th November 2017, at 4 p.m., the presiding officers are scheduled to hold pre-nomination briefing with the leaders of the majority and minority parties in Committee Room number 7, Main Parliament Building, ahead of the nomination day, which is tomorrow, Thursday, 30th November 2017, between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Thereafter, the timelines will run as follows. These timelines are very important, Mr. Speaker. First, there will be submission of nomination papers to the presiding officers. That is in accordance with Rule 10. It will be on 30th November. That is tomorrow between 8:30 to 4 p.m. Then there will be public inspection of the documents. That will act as public participation as required by law, which is in accordance with Rule 12. It will be from Friday 1st to Monday 4th December 2017. Then there will be the transmission of names of the duly nominated candidates to the Joint Committee by the presiding officers in accordance with Rule 13, which will be on Tuesday next week, 5th December 2017. And then there will be the Joint Committee to consider the nominees and present its report to the Houses of Parliament in accordance with Rule 13. And it will be done on Wednesday, between Wednesday 6th and Friday 8th December 2017. And the presiding officers thereafter will gazette the election date in accordance with Rule 15, and this will be done by Monday, 11th December 2017. And Mr. Speaker, the ultimate date is the election date, and it will be done in accordance with Rule 15, and this will be on Wednesday, 13th December 2017. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I challenge the political parties to ensure that their candidates meet the statutory qualification for election as members of Parliament. That is a requirement of the East African Treaty, that those to represent the partner states should be qualified to be members of the Parliament of those partner states. It is also advisable for nominating parties to comply with the provision of Rule 6 subclause 2, which provide that, and I quote, and actually this has been canvassed this afternoon when we were talking about representation of the House leadership from the minority side. Rule 6 subclause 2 says, in nominating its candidate, each party shall, as much as it is feasible, take into account the need for fair representation of the various shades of opinions, regional balance, gender, and other special interest groups in Kenya, and shall ensure that at least 1/3 of its nominees are women. Mr. Speaker, the committee shall, upon being says of the names of the nominees under Rule 13, ensure the nominees fully meet the requirement of Article 50 of the treaty of the East African Treaty and Rule 6 of the Yala Rules 2017. That's what I've just explained, that the qualification that are required. And then the fact that the submission of Kenya's members to the East African Legislative Assembly is long overdue and has become a concern within the East African community, that cannot be overemphasized, Mr. Speaker. As a matter of fact, Kenya is the only partner state of the East African community that is yet to present its members to the regional assembly. Considering that the assembly cannot be inaugurated without the representation from any of the partner states, Kenya can no longer be the country holding the takeoff of the regional assembly in abeyance. Mr. Speaker, in view of the foregoing, I request the House and political parties to note the key timelines of the election process and support the Joint Committee in steering the election of Kenya's representative to the East Africa Legislative Assembly to its logical conclusion. The Joint Committee will be convening next week on Tuesday, 5th December 2017, to receive a report from the presiding officers and the nomination papers of the candidates who shall have been duly nominated on 30th November 2017. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. I think that was just a statement for information to both the House and the public. But of course, there's a key requirement, qualification to be a member of Parliament. And I do recall that this House in the 11th Parliament did make some amendments to Section 22 of the Elections Act. I hope that is going to be also strictly adhered to as to educational qualifications, particularly. Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, procedural motion.
Honorable Washiali.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 256, this House orders that the business appearing under Order number 10 be exempted from the provisions of Standing Order number 127, Standing Order number 127-1, on referral of a bill to the relevant committee upon first reading. Mr. Speaker, if I just took 1 minute to explain, if members have the order paper of today, the order number 10, which is being exempted from this procedure, is the order that is supposed to be allocating, the order number 10 is the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017. And Mr. Speaker, the challenge that we have now, and I'm sure every member of Parliament is aware that as we speak today, we don't have committees in place. And therefore, given that this revenue is overdue, that we as a House were meant to have approved this long ago, I think it's important for members to agree with me that it's important to overlook this step so that we can go ahead, debate this county revenue allocation so that the county governments can continue to operate. Mr. Speaker, in the spirit of working together, like I had said earlier, I want to request Honorable Chris Wamalwa, who is Deputy Minority Whip, to second this motion.
Wamalwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second this motion. Mr. Speaker, we do know very well that we are not ready for committees. And in line with Article 118 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, calling for public participation, I think these are some of the stages which can be exempted. And we do know very well, Mr. Speaker, that this is a Senate bill. And for this bill to have reached this level, at the Senate, obviously, public participation was done there. And the same spirit, Mr. Speaker, because we do know that the stakeholders are the same. even if it was to be done in the National Assembly, whatever will be the output, Mr. Speaker, it will be a lot, they will have a lot of convergency. So, Mr. Speaker, we know very well the counties are not operating optimally because of the shortage of the revenue, Mr. Speaker. And we know we've had a lot of challenges, Mr. Speaker, this year. The fact that it's a year of elections, and of course, because of some ideological political differences, Mr. Speaker, has led to the delay of the full operation of this House, Mr. Speaker. As we've just realized, Mr. Speaker, our NASA side has just given the names of the coalition. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we also have a way of resolving our own internal issues. But for now, of course, we are going to move on with work. In case of any changes, you will be notified accordingly, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm urging the other honorable colleagues that for purposes of our counties to operate, and this being a procedural motion, Mr. Speaker, without much ado, I think as I second, I'll appreciate if we can just pass it so that we can move to the next business, Mr. Speaker. I thank you, and I second.
The member for Kibwezi West, maybe you could take your seat. You can walk next to the member for, is it not Vihiga, Sabatia. Member for Hamisi. Honourable members, I think both the mover and the second have explained, but more importantly, is to appreciate that both the National Assembly and the Senate during the 11th Parliament did pass a bill titled, one of those bills that which are exempted from many other processes under Article 218, the County Allocation Revenue Bill. But there had been found to have been mistakes, so that the funds which were allocated in the first bill were not exactly what was due to the various counties. And therefore, this bill became necessary in the Senate. So it's just to make adjustments. I'm saying this because, honourable members, as you all know, to move from one stage, to move a bill from one stage to the other requires the concurrence of the entire House. So that if I hear one member say no, that will be sufficient to store it. I therefore propose a question, which is that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 256, relating to exemption of business from standing orders, this House orders the business appearing under order number 10 be exempted from the provision of Standing Order number 127-1 on referral of a bill to the relevant committee upon first reading. I therefore put the question that pursuant to the provision of Standing Order number 256 on exemption of business from standing orders, this House orders that the business appearing under order number 10 be exempted from the provision of Standing Order number 127-1 on referral of a bill to the relevant committee upon first reading. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as contrary opinion say nay? You see? You see? The ayes have it. I suppose some member was coughing. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, adoption of sessional paper number 7 of 2016 on the mining and minerals policy. Question to be put.
Take your seat. I think, honourable members, it looks like we may have to do several induction workshops so that members can appreciate. When they are in the chamber, there are rules. Honourable members, debate on this motion was concluded, and what remained was the question to be put. And since I confirm that the House corrects, I proceed to put the question. That this House adopts sessional paper number 7 of 2016 on the mining and minerals policy laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. As many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017,
First reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the County Allocation of Revenue Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendments Bill, National Assembly Bill number 44 of 2017, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to make minor amendments to statute law. Order number 12, the Petroleum Exploration, Development, and Production Bill, National Assembly Bill number 40 of 2017, second reading.
Honorable Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Leader of the Majority, we wish to stand down this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Appearing as order number 12.
Order number 12.
About the next?
Same, Mr. Speaker.
Are you standing them down or are you withdrawing?
Mr. Speaker, when Majority Leader was leaving, he was leaving in a hurry, but the information he left me with is that we defer these bills to a later date.
Very well. The business appearing as number 12 and 13 is deferred. Stood down. Move to the next order.
Order number 14, the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, second reading.
Honorable Barire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Bill 2017, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017 be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, the bill was passed by the Senate without amendments on Thursday, 9th November 2017, and is before this House now in accordance with the provisions of Articles 110 and 111 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill 2017 seeks to rectify an error in the County Allocation of Revenue Act 2017 as passed by the Senate and the National Assembly of the 11th Parliament on 15th June 2017.
You can shake hands later. You appear to be unduly interested in shaking hands. Honourable members, I propose a question, which is that the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, be now read a second time. Going by the list that is here, Tum Chebet.
I'm not ready for this.
You don't just put your account on the next one is Ole Sankok, David.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. And let me state from the beginning that I do support this motion. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think there are some issues that we have to address as a House, and some of them we sweep under the carpet, Mr. Speaker, sir, because this House is the House that makes the laws. And these laws, Mr. Speaker, sir, if I can remember, some of them touches on the issue of gender sensitivity to that gender rule and others. Mr. Speaker, today, if I don't say that I'm shocked by what happened when the names for the leaders of the minority party were being tabled in this House, I will be misleading this House, Mr. Speaker, because it's a total mockery to democracy. There were no gender balance, there was no regional balance. To speak the truth, these people, the leadership come from 25 kilometers radius from each other.
Yes, what's the point of honor,
to democracy, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What's the point of honor, Honorable Amalwa?
Mr. Speaker, is the honorable member in order under the standing order of relevance? I know this is a technical bill. If he has nothing to say, like the other honorable member, instead of diverting attention, Mr. Speaker, and going back again to the leadership of a minority. It seems he is not prepared, Mr. Speaker. He should let those who are prepared to debate this matter and move forward instead of talking to things which are relevant, which are not relevant to the subject matter. I thank you.
Maybe he may be doing it in the context of equity.
Mr. Speaker,
equitable distribution of resources
who have been marginalized. And I cannot stand in this house and see and watch people from the coast being used and dumped, people from the Wiper Party being used and dumped, even the Maasai being used and dumped. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is really a mockery to democracy for these people to be tabling names of people who come from one region, who come from a radius of 25 kilometers from each other. This house is supposed to implement the laws, and one of the laws talk of in any appointive of elective position, there must be regional balance and gender balance. How comes that the NASA coalition is a coalition? It's not even balancing their own political parties. Mr. Speaker, sir, I refer them to read 1 Samuel 1, 1 Samuel 16, 1. And instead, when will my people realize that I've rejected Saul to be king of Israel? Now you can know that when will our people know that we have rejected somebody to be king over Kenya. And when people, even today early in the morning, somebody was using the names Tibib, Tialala, somebody was even saying His Excellency Raila Odinga. No, we should be straightforward. Mr. Speaker, sir, now to come back to the motion. Mr. Speaker, sir, to come back to the motion. Our counties, yeah. In fact, the coast people have already resisted, they have moved out, the Maasai have resisted, they have moved out. To come back to the motion, Mr. Speaker, sir, counties are suffering. We really need to do this amendment as quick as possible, and we need to be very specific because we need, the Auditor General to know in terms of the allocation, how much, so that we don't have mistakes in accountability. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Member for Funyula.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the amendment bill, but before I make that, my heart bleeds when an educated honorable member like Ms. Honorable Songok can divert and waste parliamentary time on irrelevant issues. Nevertheless, it is surprising, sorry to say this, and indeed probably we need to start asking questions. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think this bill is long overdue. The challenges and the problems the county governments are facing are becoming embarrassing to some extent. Services have generally have come to a halt. Hospitals are suffering. Schools are suffering. Roads are not being repaired. Basic services are not being rendered. Therefore, it is important that us as members, we support the expeditious passing of this bill to enable county governments get funds. On the same note, we ask the government, the national government, to act in good faith, not to punish some counties by virtue of their political affiliation, not to disburse funds in a discriminatory manner, because that's against the law and it's against public equity. In the same vein, I want to join my colleagues in calling for accountable use of these funds, for calling for the use of funds in such a manner that the multiplier effect can be felt throughout the respective counties. As we embark now on the second phase of devolution, devolution should surely be the hallmark that's going to solve the perennial complaint of marginalization and unfair distribution of resources. In the same vein, We ask the national government to pull up their socks, collect the relevant revenues so that we can increase the total national revenue to enable us to devolve more funds to the counties, because the counties ought to be the engine that's going to run this country. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, sir, I suppose the issues of the House leadership on the side of NASA, it is our business and our business. We kindly ask our friends on the other side to mind their business and let us solve our issues in the manner we know best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Member for Dagoretti South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I'd like to state that from the onset, I do support this expedited passing of this bill. And I'd like to say that we have an opportunity as Parliament to play our role in enhancing the functions of devolution in this country, and being an important organ of the government as a standalone autonomous organ of the government. We do have a role to support the business of the counties, and in the process also by extension accord the required services to our members of our constituencies. More importantly also, Mr. Speaker, sir, we do recognize the situation that we are coming from as a country, where we have had an extended period of campaigning and electioneering season that has led to the grounding to a halt of important services that are provided both by national government and county government. And it is in that vein that I stand to support that we expedite the passing of this bill, and while at it, also call upon the members of both sides of the House to see the need for us as members of Parliament to put aside some of our small differences when it comes to issues that are of national concern. Mr. Speaker, sir, I note with a lot of attention that it would be not in order to say that this government has been inequitably allocating resources to the counties by wanting to see some counties as government friendly and others as not. I'd like to say it here that there are many instruments that we have put in our new constitution that ensure that there is an equitable distribution of resources to all the counties of this country. But even as we speak about this, we also should, as members of Parliament, put some little pressure on our devolved governments to also see that they do have a role to play in collection of revenue which can also be shared equitably among all other counties, so that when we come to the discussion of how we share the national cake, we do not only talk about the revenue that comes from the national government or the central government, but we can also be talking about an increased collection of revenue from the counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, I think we all do agree that a quick passing of this bill will enable some critical functions within the counties to resume as normal, and I do pray that we will not find ourselves in a situation of delay as we have in this time. Mr. Speaker, sir, you'll allow me to just spend my last minute to put in my voice in a discussion that has come up this afternoon, and say that I do note that some of the names that have been presented here by members of the National Coalition are able leaders, are people that we know, people of integrity, people who we know mean well for this country. But it should not end there, Mr. Speaker, sir. We also have a constitution that urges us to observe some if they're not just constitutional rules, they're also humanly rules, where we should be seeking equity, not only by just saying it, but by also practicing it. So while it is not in my purview to tell NASA what they can do, I would like to urge them to kindly reconsider the list that they have tabled in Parliament this afternoon and try to bring in a bit of some regional balance and gender balance. And if possible, let them consider the younger, non-radicalized members of the NASA coalition who would push the agenda a bit further for this country and even for their party. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honourable members, just to remind you that on a motion like this one, you have 10 minutes, not 5. Eh? So just organize your thought processes. Member for Narok North. Member for Narok North, Ole Kenta. You just place the member for Chepalungu.
Thank you, Speaker. I stand to support the motion on the county allocation of revenue bill. County governments plays a key role in stimulating the economy of this country. So the national government should not be the ones putting on hold the services that are required by county government. Since the Senate has already passed to us, I think the honorable thing we can do is to pass through the bill. One of our members of parliament who has spoken before me, he mentioned about the resources being allocated or released to all the counties at once. For me, I strongly believe that the governors who have not accepted the leadership of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, I think for them, they should go in public and accept that the duly elected president of this country is Uhuru Kenyatta, then they are given the allocation. Before they do that, I don't see any reason why they can be given the allocation of the counties. Because the people have spoken and they have elected Uhuru with majority votes. So if the governors have not accepted that Uhuru is the president, then they need to seek funds elsewhere. I stand to support the bill. Thank you, Speaker.
Member for before your point of order, what is your point of order, Honorable Omalo?
Mr. Speaker, from the look of things, you can see honorable members speaking for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and the motive of this amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, was just to bring the consistency, particularly of the grants, between the division of revenue and the county allocation. May I call the mover, Mr. Speaker, to close, because there's nothing new, and this had already been debated, so that we move on to other business. I thank you.
Ideally, Honorable Amalwa, you having spoken, you didn't speak on this, but I can see the member for Kwanza and put an intervention. Maybe he has something to say about the county allocation of revenue. Even the member for Bondo is desirous of contributing. I thought this should be serious business. I'm surprised that
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted also to support my colleague, Honorable Chris. I realize people are using this as a platform for lecturing to us, and I want to take this opportunity to tell them we don't need any lecture from biased Jubilee side. We know what we are doing, and there's a saying in Kiswahili, Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to, pilipili usiila inakuasha nini bwana? Why are you involved in things that, I think we have heard of it. Let's talk about this one. And my take on this is that, Mr. Speaker, I think we are
going to put you guys on a point of order. Just put your intervention, yes. Honorable Muturi Kigano.
Mr. Speaker,
use the mic.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, whatever is being discussed here is not apportioned between Jubilee or NASA. We are talking of a very serious issue on appointment. This is a constitutional institution. Mr. Speaker, this House is a constitutional institution. The first duty you have, with a lot of respect, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that this House, in its deliberations and its process, it obeys the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, my point of order is this: you cannot apportion and say this is your part, that Piripiri sijui nini what it says. Everything there, whatever is...
And found none of the opposite gender capable of performing any of the leadership positions. So I cannot myself be the one to police them. But should anybody feel aggrieved, obviously, like we have seen some famous gentlemen proceed to the High Court and seek some interpretation, whether they took into account. It is there they will explain. Since I do not operate a court of law, I'm unlikely to now call the leadership and ask them, did you take into account? Or, because who knows? You can hear the Honorable Amalo says that actually it was taken into account. And then they arrived at the decision that nobody from the opposite gender merited any of the positions. So it's up to them now, the membership there, to deal with the issue. But of course, you are at liberty to comment on the issue, because it was not a debate. It is just a communication that I made into the House, which was also brought to me from the coalition. I thought that what is required of me is to notify the House this is what I have received. Now, anybody feeling aggrieved can use their own party mechanisms to raise those issues, and if they desire so to do, then present even a motion here, seeking the House to express itself one way or other. But certainly, it will not be in my purview to begin now policing the parties from both sides of the divide. Honorable Wanyonyi, were you through with your contribution?
No, I just started and I was interrupted by a point of order which I had no tail and end. I didn't even know what he was talking about.
Okay, maybe you could look for the tail somewhere. Because I don't know whether the head maybe.
Was a pleasure, Mr. Speaker. I think I need an apology from my good brother. But anyway, my take on this is that I want to thank whoever noted the error, which was a big error, and I think it was well explained by Mheshimiwa Cecilia Mberedi, and she well explained what happened. There's an error which was noted, and I think it's good. I think, Mr. Speaker, we should be able to pass this motion because it's affecting, if you look at the areas affecting, Mr. Speaker, one is in health sector, which is very important. Two, agriculture, and I come from an agriculture area, also very important, and of course the other one is in devolution. I do believe that we should actually pass this motion of amendment, which was by error passed in the 11th Parliament, and be able to see that the funds are actually taken to the counties. My take on this also, Mr. Speaker, is that the counties now are employing the executives and even CSS there. We hope and pray that this money will be used properly, because the temptation out there is that some of the counties are employing their cronies who may not be qualified to be able to appropriate these funds properly. And therefore, I think we should be on keen, particularly the Senator, to be able to look at some of this allocation, which to me, I think, may also be misused and reallocated to other functions that are not key in those particular areas. So I want to say I support this amendment, and I think we should pass this afternoon so the funds can be taken to the counties so they can be able to function. I've been in the rural area, and I think the counties are suffering. They are not moving. And this is a lot of money and therefore I think we should be able to pass this as soon as possible. I support.
Member for Saku.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, this is a money bill, and we are here because of the Constitution. Article 114, 1, 2, and 3 clearly says the role of the National Assembly. And in the 11th Parliament, I think we rejected this particular bill on the grounds that the Senate had no capacity to alter or to allocate monies to any institution that will not have passed through this House. I think that is the import of it. It is the Constitution. So when any of us sitting in this House think that we can use the Constitution on the right hand and reject it on the left hand, then we are not doing the right thing. And that is principally, even on those appointments. If we say we abide and live by the Constitution, then I think the constitutional order is good all the time. Not we use it when we think and feel we can use it and get away with it. Mr. Speaker, in this particular bill, I think I support it, and I think we should pass it with necessary speed. On the grounds that the counties now are cash-strapped. You remember by the time we were passing, or we were rejecting this bill, we were going for the elections. And there was the general feeling in the 11th Parliament that some of these monies were going to be used for electioneering purposes. But now that we are all beginning afresh, the counties are starting afresh, then we believe that these monies should go for the purposes they were meant for. Mr. Speaker, I want to go further and say that the Senate should not in any way try to hide behind allocation of resources without having proper oversight over the counties. And in the 11th Parliament, one of the areas we were really talking about was the issue of corruption, where monies allocated properly from this House, they don't end up with our people at the grassroots, basically defeating the sole purpose of devolution. For that reason, we feel that whatever is given in terms of grant, whether it is conditional or unconditional grants, they must be fully accounted for. And the Auditor General must take proper cognizance that those are public monies that must be fully accounted for by our counties. Mr. Speaker, one of the honorable members who spoke before me talked about inequity. I think devolution in itself is one way of curing inequity, where today almost all the counties across this republic receive close to between 5 and 11 billion shillings. That hitherto was not there. I think for that reason, as members of this House, instead of appearing politically correct, we should actually be oversighting our counties, that the monies allocated to them reaches our people in the villages and the towns. Finally, Mr. Speaker, it is on the issue of tax collection. In the 11th Parliament, there was a lot of talk of what counties should be allocated in terms of what is defined as the CRA formula. But On the other hand, what we have failed to do or to realize is tax collection by our counties. It is said by the taxman that what they used to collect before devolution in the county councils, in the urban councils and the municipal councils, far supersedes what today counties are collecting to you. And if those monies are properly utilized by those governors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Bondo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one thing that I want to bring out very clearly is the whole issue of the corrective value in the proposed amendment. Mr. Speaker, sometimes it really becomes unfortunate when some institutions or some individuals outside there get to realize that there are certain mistakes that Parliament did, particularly when it comes to figures. I could remind the House that, for example, last year, when the courts were calculating what goes as CDF, we eventually lost 10 billion, just because in terms of their own ways of doing the mathematics of the share of revenue, they were saying that no, we were supposed not to get the additional 10 billion over 25 billion. So the corrective value of this bill, in my view, is very, very important. And it could be my prayer, Mr. Speaker, that if we are able to be reminding the House every single time that we have figures and statements that border on budgets and stuff like that, we really need to be very careful so that people don't correct us outside there. Like right now, we are talking about a 3 billion mistake. So imagine it would have really escaped us, both the houses, and it would have gone outside there, and somebody will be talking about how Parliament was not able to look at the issue of 3 billion and escaped us like that. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is important that we keep reminding ourselves that when figures come around, we really need to be very careful. The other thing that, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to bring around is that counties are grinding to a halt. And when counties grow to a halt, for example, at the moment, a lot of our rural constituencies are dependent on now, all the rural economies are more dependent on what counties or the monies that get to the counties. In one way or the other, the monies that are transferred to the counties are supporting our economies in a much more bigger way, to an extent that when we miss or when months pass without monies getting transferred to the constituencies, to the counties, I think there's a very big problem, and a genuine one for that matter. The other thing that is important here is on the issue of the conditional grant. I remember in the first year of the last Parliament, monies was given. We gave money to the counties, and this money is included in terms of their functions, which included the issue of village polytechnics. If you checked around, it's like no county placed any money on those village polytechnics. To an extent that we had to go in the second or third year to make sure that we place conditional grant for purposes of the village polytechnics. So it is important that we keep reminding ourselves that no, for what is to make counties behave well, particularly when it comes to issues of funding, are on those conditional grants, such that we are sure that certain services and certain activities or projects are carried out the way they're supposed to be done in a single year. Mr. Speaker, the other thing that as we talk about this is important that we remind ourselves is that there are numerous factors that are listed in the Constitution in Article 203, Article 1. There are a number, but apparently, as we move on in the last number of years, as we are implementing this and as we are sharing revenue, it's like some of these factors are not looked at. And one of them is the whole issue of where we are talking about optimizing the revenues that are able to be collected locally. And the rewards that are supposed to be following when a county does very well, the Constitution allows that kind of a county needs to be rewarded, particularly when it comes to issues of their own local revenue generation. Right now, we are talking about counties grinding to a halt. Not because of anything, but a lot of them are unable. A lot of them are unable to collect monies, collect levies from internal sources of revenue generation. A lot of them have not been creative. A lot of them are fully dependent on the national government, to an extent that when there is a small technical thing like this, counties are unable to operate. And yet, it is a requirement in the Constitution that no, with time, we need to check in terms of how many counties or which counties are able to do certain things beyond what ordinarily happens, such that we even are able to reward them. I remember what's happening in some of my neighboring, sometimes even including my own county. They are unable to raise a quarter of what, like in my county, 7 or 8 local authorities were generating when we were under local government. So in the end, they're fully, almost 90–95% dependent on what is coming from Nairobi. And this is something that, in my view, if you are checking in terms of really those factors, we look at them properly, that no, once you are able to generate more money, you are supposed to be rewarded with more money in law, because that is there in the Constitution. So, Mr. Speaker, as I'm supporting this, we really want to say that for purposes of the county government to really run in the next number of years, they really need to focus on their own internal revenue sources beyond depending on Nairobi, such that they are able to do certain things on their own, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Obo Mohammed, Lamu. Being absent, not desiring to be present. Member for Ikolomani, Honorable Shinali. Member for Narok North is not there also. Member for Mandera West, Yusuf Haji.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this motion. Devolution. This motion actually touches a lot on the devolution support, in that these monies we are now discussing is monies which are going to help down for activities of devolution. Devolution has been seen as the key parameter to our development. Since devolution was started in Kenya, a lot has changed in terms of development. And therefore, it is our interest, the interest of this country, the interest of the people of Kenya, that we make sure that monies meant to go to the counties as per the scheduled times. Delays in sending monies or giving monies to the counties lead to delays in implementing of projects. And since a lot of our activities have been devolved, including critical activities like health, education, water, health, water, and other very critical activities have been devolved. The earlier we move these monies to the county level, the better, because as now, since this financial year, I think we have been doing a lot of politicking at the expense of our developments. I therefore also look at the issue of accountability and transparency. As members of parliament, one key role that we have is to make sure that we do oversight of implementations of projects and activities that are being funded through the government coffers. And it has been realized that a lot of mismanagement of funds, a lot of opaque activities that are not transparent at all, a lot of monies that are not accounted for. When we look at the report of the Auditor General and other reports, and it is, I think, the responsibility of this House or these members of Parliament, these honorable members of Parliament, to ensure that we enhance the oversight activity and to make sure that when these monies go, it is used for the intended purposes. Finally, while supporting this motion, the issue of revenue collection. It has, the counties, before devolution, county councils, urban councils, municipal councils used to depend a lot on monies that has been collected locally, revenues that has been collected locally. But when this devolution and they started getting monies from the government, the activity of internal collection really went down. Or is it the monster corruption that is there that monies are collected from the public, but does not go into the accounts of the where it's supposed to be going. And therefore, it's again still our responsibility to ensure that our oversight activity is enhanced, and therefore, I support this motion and will ask these monies to be sent to the counties as quickly as possible, because currently, I think the situations down there at the county level is very, very critical. They don't have money, no much activities can be done, health facilities have been run down, and therefore I support this motion, and I wish these monies to go as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Member for Sirisia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for having given me this chance also to contribute. Mr. Speaker, let me start by appreciating Honorable Berire for having detected the mistake so that the public outside there to know that indeed this House is working. Mr. Speaker, there is a cry indeed outside there that the county governments are really crying for money. And to me, Madam Speaker, is that money should be given. And I've stood here to support this bill so that the county government can also move. They can also do their development as it is needed. But the problem which this House should stand on, and all of us have been in counties because that is where we come from, is that there's a lot of theft. To be honest, with some counties, with some governors. And to give an example or evidence, Madam Speaker, I can openly say that last week we saw on TV, and this was from, I don't know, the side of Lunyenjes, where the governor actually bought a generator worth over 2.5 million. Darakanithi. That is to show open stealing. And even the world noticed, they saw that thing on TV. And this governor just take it to his home, or to his hotel, and put it there. So even if we are approving money, although we are approving, but we need also to check. We don't have a way of us, it is the MCS that were supposed to oversight this problem. But some of them are inferior, maybe. The government should look for a way of, or this House should look for a way of approving this money to the counties. Because we are just giving them money to make them rich, and they are not actually bringing the money back to the exchequer. Like the collections, I think I support the MP who have just spoken lastly here, that the collections has really gone down, and indeed some counties are not showing that they are collecting any revenue, bringing back to the treasury so that they allocate it back to other counties also, because there are some counties that collect little money because of their areas. Like where I come from, Bungoma County, there is no revenue collection because the governor, after elections, he went around and told the taxpayers not to pay revenue. So I don't know how that one is going to be. But due to the cry, because we are punishing the innocent wananchi to get their service, we are approving that counties should be given, should be allocated this, and it should be urgent. The move should be quick so that the operation should go on. I support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You support. Point of order. And I remember, is it a point, and you must tell the House, is it a point of information? Yes, let me hear from you. The Honorable Member for Kwanza.
Madam Speaker, I think this motion is straightforward, and I think the mover made it very, very clear. It was just an error. Can I stand on order number 95, standing order number 25, to end the debate so that I can be able to call the mover to answer? It was straightforward order. I think it was just a correction, so we shouldn't be offended. We want this money to be pushed to the counties.
Order, yes. You're rightly, at least you're rising on a point of order. Members, standing order number 95, procedurally and rightly did. But with my discretion, before I put his question, because the House has to take a direction through a vote, let me give to, at least to the member for Ikolomani, at the Speaker's discretion. The member for Ikolomani? Member for Narok North, next on my request list. Member for Mwingi North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I take this opportunity to contribute to this bill. And as I make this contribution, I want to bring to the attention of the members that it is indeed a long overdue bill. As a matter of fact, there is a lot of suffering in the counties, noting that this is the only way money can go to the lower levels, and especially now that the national government has not been spending money on the lower levels, and that the CDF money, which usually cushions the communities down where we come from, and the county money as well, I think it is important that we pass this bill. As a matter of fact, I am aware that contractors whose assets have been sold off by banks, others have gone bankrupt, and I think it is a serious matter that we must indeed pass this bill. However, I want to refer members to the table, and I just want to ask this question, and my friends from Meru County, I beg your pardon, because I see that Meru County alone is taking so much money from the money allocated. For example, in column A, Meru has 1.7 billion compared to all these other counties where they're getting hundreds, 88 and stuff like that. And when you go to column D, you still find that Meru is getting 3.92 billion as compared to other counties that are beneficiaries of column B, getting 40 million, 20 million, and only Nairobi comes closer by getting 2.1 billion shillings. So I think that is a question I wanted to bring for the consideration of the House as we debate this bill. And also when you go to condition section 5, 1, 2, 3, and you go to the last bit of it, which says conditional allocations amounting to Kenya shillings 4 billion, financed by a grant from the World Bank for the Kenya Development Support Program, and known as KDSP, Performance Level 2 grant shall be allocated among the county government on the basis of a criteria which shall be determined as follows. Now when you go through A, then you go to B, a certain section of the B says the revenue sharing B says allocation of eligible county, allocation to the eligible county government shall be on basis of the criteria comprising of the performance score determined in paragraph A above and the revenue sharing formula approved by the Parliament in accordance to Article 217 of the Constitution. I find that the entire 5.3 a very gray area which can be subject to manipulation by the executive, and so I would wish that we as a parliament look into detail, and I appreciate the fact that the Senate has actually discussed this bill, but you know, the reason why they bring it to us is to point out issues that may be gray area. I find this 4 billion can be subjected to a misuse by the executive because the cabinet secretary is the one that overly having the responsibility or the honors to distribute that money. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The last one before I get to, and this is at the Speaker's discretion, as I said before, the member for Tigania West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to support this motion, and basically also to respond to the member who has just spoken. Madam Speaker, I come from the Meru County, and I would like to take the members stepwise on the process of coming up with project funds and how project funds are allocated. Madam Speaker, you realize that most of this money we are discussing today falls under the part 2 of the 4th schedule of our Constitution in terms of the involved programs or the involved activities. Under devolution, agriculture, medical services, and others fall under part 2 of the 4th schedule. Madam Speaker, project money is normally, projects are designed based on the project activities themselves as discussed by the stakeholders and agreed upon. And the project money apportionment very much depends on the activities that are going to be conducted in those areas. Madam Speaker, first of all, to raise a point of order, I do not think this motion was brought basically to discuss whether the error came from Meru or not. So the member is out of order to bring in specific issues here, discussing Meru as a case. And Meru is not a case as a county. Madam Speaker, I would like us to look at what actually are the activities that have been funded. The discrepancy is basically 9 shillings short of 4 billion. And I would like, Madam Speaker, to thank the person who discovered this error, because one of the things that he has done, he or she has done accurately and effectively, is to put this house out of disrepute. Because if it was blatantly, passed, and later on discovered that there was such a major error, the house would be in disrepute. Madam Speaker, I speak from the background of having participated specifically in the design and development of the project on the National Agricultural Inclusive Growth Project. This project takes into account many factors, including many important attributes of climate change response, which basically falls under mitigation and adaptation measures. When you look at some of these measures, it very much depends on where these activities are taking place. So the magnitude of the activities themselves will basically speak the amount of money that is going to be apportioned to those areas if those activities are going to have the necessary impact. Madam Speaker, the design of some of these loan on grants, especially given by the World Bank and others, is basically dependent on specific areas in view of the magnitude of the problem. Under the negotiations which normally occur before the project agreement is signed, normally there is an agreement on how much money should be apportioned to a specific activity in a specific area. So these are very specifically tailored towards some of those areas, and therefore there is no case in point to bring out a county as having been, probably erroneously allocated money, which is not supposed to be true here. Madam Speaker, if you look at the recent rains that you had, there was serious flooding in parts of Meru County, And the Meru County, as a county, was not able to respond to the minimum to any of those issues. First of all, Meru County has not been a serious subject to funding, but unfortunately this time around it was. Secondly, there was no money in the county as is the case in other counties. And therefore, probably because some of this money is supposed to be targeted to emergency response services, and that money was not there, Meru people had to suffer, and many of them died. Madam Speaker, counties are suffering. I agree with most of the speakers that came before me that counties are suffering. And they are suffering because they do not have this money as yet. There are programs laid out in their CIDPs and rolled out into annual programs which have not been supported so far. So the more we keep this money with us, or the more the money is kept in the exchequer before it is released, the longer it takes for these counties to respond, and therefore the more serious that danger that this causes. Madam Speaker, there is something called matching grants, which are given under project arrangement. Matching grants are given by the national government in collaboration with the donor or the supporting agency that supports specific activities. If this allocation went with an error, there would still have been issues, and it would have been discovered at that point in time, because the matching grants calculated according to the agreed formula would not have yielded the expectation of this particular program. Madam Speaker, the specificity of this program, of the purpose of the program is important, and I do not need to belabor on that point anymore. Madam Speaker, I would like to highlight one very important point in terms of delays in funding in view of undeclared effectiveness of a project. This project had an effectiveness date. After the negotiation, then there was a set date for effectiveness. The longer we delay, the more we suffer as a country, because we have a loan that is not operating, the money is not being utilized for the purpose intended, and therefore this money is costly to us because the bank will count on those days. According to the bank, effectiveness date has already been agreed upon, and disbursement formula has already been given out. It is upon the country to withdraw the money or not. And the longer we take, the more we pay. And therefore, it is important for us to correct this particular anomaly very quickly so that the money moves to the counties for purposes of being expedited or being utilized for the purpose. Madam Speaker, therefore, I stand to support this motion and withdraw any form of doubt that Meru was considered erroneously. I think we need to look at the entire allocation for all the counties and therefore look at exactly what is the issue. And I would like it to come out clearly that Meru was not an issue here for discussion, and that Meru County was not allocated. We are not here to discuss how much Meru was allocated vis-a-vis others. Madam Speaker, finally, I would like to say that it is important for us to fast-track this particular process so that we do not put the country into unnecessary cost, besides also being unable to move the activities at the county level. I support, Madam Speaker.
You support. Thank you. Well spoken, honourable members. Following the rising of the member for Kwanza on standing order number 95, your own standing orders, I believe that this is not, it is procedural. And so I move to put the question on the same. That is the mover be called upon to reply. Given the weight of the matter, the county allocation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And so, honourable members, I put the question to this. Honourable Cecil. No, sorry, I'm putting the question to the request from the member for Kwanza. The two members spoke at my own discretion. So members, given the weight of the bill, the amendment, that is the county allocation of revenue amendment bill, I therefore put the question that the mover be called upon to reply. Will as men as are of this opinion say aye? And as men as of contrary opinion say nay? Honourable members, the ayes have it. So I do call the mover to reply. Honourable Cecil Mbarira.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I would like to donate 3 minutes to the Honourable Naomi Shaban.
Honourable Cecil Mbarira, yes, I know you are philanthropic enough, but following the procedures of the House and our own standing orders, this debate was prematurely closed because it was through the standing order number 95, and so we do not, at this point, we do not give out our...
Much obliged, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank all the members that have contributed to this important motion. Because, Madam Speaker, we know that we have had many counties coming up and crying out for revenue from the national government as is stipulated in the Constitution. And I think it is within our mandate to therefore pass this motion so that counties may continue to work, may continue to do their projects in good time, Madam Speaker, and we can begin to see business getting more serious than it has been over the last couple of months, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, let me also say that one of the things that has come out of this debate which caught my ear and was the challenge to counties to begin to work on getting local revenue that will help their counties grow, so that the overdependence on the national government can reduce, Madam Speaker. And so we hope that going forward, we are going to see more counties really working to ensure that there's enough business that is going on, that there's an environment that is friendly to investment so that you can be able to attract revenue in terms of licenses, etc. And of course, not saying that we should burden the already very heavily burdened taxpayer, but look for ways that will encourage people to pay revenue that can help the county grow, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I have no doubt in my mind that those are the challenges of the new governors that have been appointed across the country, and we want to see more competition across counties, and we want to be able to see counties really doing well, at least so that devolution can make even more sense as we move forward. Madam Speaker, it's also important to just inform the House that yesterday, as the President of Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta, was speaking, he did actually emphasize on the need to continue supporting devolution and ensure that devolution does actually work. So going forward, we should expect that county allocations will be timely, there will be no challenges, and of course, quickly urge our members from both sides of the House to help in getting the normalcy that we need as a nation so that businesses can thrive, more revenue is collected by those in authority and those who have been bestowed the duty of collecting revenue, so that then more money can go to those counties. The more we protract our political battles, the more we really expose this nation to real suffering that will affect even the mwananchi we claim to be fighting for. So I think, Madam Speaker, with those remarks, I want to thank all the members and appreciate the many ideas that have come forth, and more importantly, appreciate the fact that this House does actually recognize the need to continue giving full support to devolution so that our country may change and develop. With those few remarks, I beg to reply.
You beg to reply. Right, fellow members. I therefore put the question. I can confirm that we have the requisite number for me to be able to put the question. And I therefore put the question, which is that the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, be now read a second time. Will as men as are of this opinion say aye? Aye. And as men as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 15, Committee of the Whole House.
Members, we move to Committee of the Whole House. Order members, those who are walking out of the chamber, and I will be pronounced that you're in committee of the whole house to debate, to consider the county allocation of revenue amendment bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017. And of course, the members, there are no amendments to this. So those who are leaving the chamber, please do so that we can have some decorum when when we are considering this. Those who are walking out of the chamber, please, but this is a very important bill. I wish, it's a very short one, I must say this. Let's go.
Clause 2.
Members, I propose the question, which is that clause 2 be part of the bill. No amendments to this, and I go to put the question, which is that clause 2 be part of the bill. Well, as men as are in this opinion say aye, and as men as contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
I propose a question, which is that clause 3 be part of the bill. Again, honorable members, we have no amendments to this, and I therefore move to put the question, which is that clause 3 be part of the bill. Will as men as are of this opinion say aye, and as men as of contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it. Next clause.
Title.
Honorable members, I propose a question, which is that the title be the title of the bill. I put the question, which is that the title be the title of the bill. Well, as men as of this opinion say aye, and as men as of contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it.
Clause 1.
Honorable members, I propose a question, which is that clause 1 be part of the bill. Again, no amendments to this, and I move to put the question, which is that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as men as are of this opinion say aye, and as men as of contrary opinion say nay, the ayes have it. Honorable members, we are through with the Committee of the House on the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, the Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, and I therefore call upon the mover.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its considerations of the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, and its approval thereof without amendments.
Thank you. Honorable members, I put the question for reporting purpose, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, and its approval thereof without amendments. And will as men as are of this opinion say aye, and as men as of contrary opinion say nay? Honorable members, the ayes have it.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
I don't have my mic. The chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the committee of the whole House has considered the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, and approved the same without amendments.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request the Honorable Naomi Shaban to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the whole House.
Yes, Honorable Naomi.
Honorable members, I propose a question which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Honorable members, I put the question which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. The mover.
Honorable Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 9 of 2017, be now read a third time. I also request the Honorable Naomi Shaban to second.
Honorable Shaban. Honorable members, I propose a question which is that the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate number 9 of 2017, be now read at that time.
Put the question.
Very well, I can read the mood of the House. Honorable members, I have confirmed that the quorum present in the House for the purpose of putting a question. I therefore put the question which is the County Allocation of Revenue Amendment Bill, Senate number 9 of 2017, be now read at that time. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the County Allocation of Revenue Act and for connected purposes.
Which is the next business? This one business. Oh.
This was the last one.
And this one? How did you do this?
They were deferred.
Oh, they were deferred. So
you attend the House.
okay. Honorable members, the time being 4:55 p.m., this House has adjourned till tomorrow, Thursday, 30th November 2017, at 2:30 p.m.